You're live. Look at that. And it's a funky looking live today, guys. Man alive, this hasn't worked well. If you're checking in to find out about coronavirus in Japan, thank you for joining us. I'll be working this out with you guys today and talking to you about what's been going on here in Japan and things like that. We've got a bit of a weird setup today because I was setting up on this, which is a Chromebook. There you go, Chromebook. But I couldn't get the camera to work. 'Cause there's two cameras. There's one on top of the keyboard and there's one on top of the screen. And there's one on top of the keyboard facing the ceiling. So that didn't work out very well for me. But a quick word, if you're watching this later on, about me doing these lives. I've done these lives every day for the last 17 days to talk about the coronavirus here in Japan and just giving people a realistic picture of what's going on rather than all that media and hype and rubbish like that. And the reason I do it live is because it's authentic, and also the reason I do this is because YouTube said that content creators won't be getting anything as far as things like getting paid or monetized or anything like that for doing this kind of content, which is why I'm doing it, because I don't like people to make profit off of other people's loss. So thanks for checking in, guys. Thanks for joining me. So I'm on my phone, which is it's not great light. I look very dark for some reason. I'm not sure if I can get a bit lighter. Maybe if I move over here a bit. Is that a bit better? I don't know. But yeah, I would have preferred to have been on this Chromebook here, but for some reason it didn't want to play with me. And I'm trying to get the light right so that you're not looking at me all dark and stuff. So is that a bit better? Yeah, it's a little bit better, except you can't see outside so much. It's nicer to see outside. And then that's probably why, is because of the lightness from outside. So, yo, Scholar Gamer Nerd, there's the man. Jesus, Scholar Gamer Nerd has been with me from the year dot. Man alive, that's, thank you, I appreciate it. I'm on my iPhone 6, how's that for technology? And I was trying to use my Chromebook, but it wasn't working out for me. I couldn't get the camera to face in the right direction, so I just gave up on that and thought I'd do it from my phone, because I'm on my work's Wi-Fi. Because I blew all my data going live from the park. Like, I totally blew it all. It's like I've got no data left on my package until maybe Friday of this week. So I've been in airplane mode for like the last week or something. So how's things in Los Angeles, man? Are you guys selling out of things? Has Los Angeles gone a little bit crazy, or are you guys pretty stable and just like, yeah, look, this is Los Angeles, we can handle anything, so you don't need to worry about us? What's going on in Los Angeles? Are you guys safe? Is everybody doing okay, or is it a little bit hairy over there? And here in Japan, it's not so bad. LA is getting tricky. Ooh, tricky, tricky, man. There's what's the word that? Slippery is another word. Good morning, Cedar. So Cedar, I think, is in Japan now. Is that right, Cedar? Even though you're from Australia, and Scholar Gamer Nerd, who's in the chat, is in Los Angeles, and I think from Los Angeles. I know you're from America, Scholar, and so it's cool that we've got already conquered half the world. So starting to stockpile. There was a guy from Utah in the chat the other day, and he was saying that as soon as the Utah Jazz players got the coronavirus, everyone panicked. That's like the level in Utah. Is like, if the Jazz are in trouble, then we're all in trouble. And he was talking about people stockpiling ammunition, and I'm like, why? This is not The Walking Dead. We don't need to be stockpiling ammunition. But it was also talking about people stockpiling things like fruit and stuff. And you're like, some guy stockpiled like 50 gallons of milk. Why would you do that? That's perishable. Please don't do that. So, sorry, Cedar just wrote something. I want to check it out and see what he said. Looks like shoppers have been going crazy back home in Australia. Yeah, Cedar's here in Japan with us now. Made it into the country without any too much trouble, I hope. Although it looks like trying to get into America these days isn't very easy. Apparently over in Chicago and O'Hare International Airport, I think it is, they've created the perfect environment to spread this virus. Lots of people in closed space for a short period of long period of time. So mandatory self-quarantine. Really? Oh, did you know that before you left? So Cedar's from Australia and he's in Japan. And he just said there's a mandatory self-quarantine waiting for him when he gets back to Australia. So did you know, Cedar, that was waiting for you, that you were going to have to do a self-quarantine when you got home, or is that something that started since you got here in Japan? So because I know Cedar's been watching my content for a while now. Like I said, this is my 17th day doing this or something. on Saturday in the world. So anywhere in the world going back to Australia has to self-quarantine for a week. So I think here in Japan, we're going to start seeing the numbers crank up a little bit. As far as I know, I couldn't find the table. My boss has a table that he looks at online that lists, the number of cases, the number of tests, the number of fatalities, and all that kind of stuff for Japan. And the last time we looked at it was late last week, and it said something like 7,000 cases, tests, 7,000 tests, man. They'd only tested 7,000 people as of the end of last week, which is insane, because it's been here, just about as long as anywhere, with the exception of China. And I think, in my mind, it was China first and then Japan second, but then Korea sort of kicked off and kind of overtook Japan, and then Italy as well. And it seems like Japan's really dragged its heels and hasn't done much testing. And according to this table, which I think was on the Ministry for, like health or something like that, so it's like an established source. And according to this table, they'd only tested 7,000 people so far. But then Abe went and announced to the nation on Saturday night, the Prime Minister here announced to the nation on Saturday night that they're aiming for 8,000 a day. There's a government website for Tokyo which tells you all the stats, including some details of the patient. I couldn't read that fast enough. Either I'm too old or... I'll come back to big chat. Some general age range, location, and gender. Very interesting to see being affected. Yeah, but that really depends. That those kind of stats really depend on how many people are getting tested. If you're not getting tested, you won't get the stats. So if they've had 7,000 tests total. I'm not talking daily tests. I'm talking the total number of tests between when they started up and late last week. That's about a month worth of testing, maybe even 6 weeks worth of testing. 7,000. So that's about 50 days, 7,000 people. And if you're going to ramp that up to 8,000 people a day. Okay, 8,000 tests a day. That's what they're aiming for here over the next few weeks. And surely, if you ramp that up to 8,000 people a day, the numbers are also going to go up. And then maybe that state of emergency will be enacted, and you'll see Japan struggling a little bit with numbers and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see the numbers go up. I doubt, Cedar, I doubt if you're in any concern being here in Japan already. I think people who are already here won't have too many difficulties and things like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if once that state of emergency kicks in, they start limiting access to more than just right now. What it is Korea and China. People coming from Korea and China have to self-quarantine in hotels near Narita Airport and Haneda Airport. I don't know what it's like at the other airports around Japan. There's more than one international airport. There's two in Tokyo, but there's Osaka International Airport and stuff like that as well. So I assume they're self-isolating or self-quarantining in those places as well. So it's I think we're probably on the cusp of a little bump up here in Japan. I think we're going to see things rise up only because of the numbers, not because of actual cases. I don't think there's going to be more people out there who are sick compared to last week. I just think they're going to identify more people. So the actual conditions on the ground aren't good. Rubster 760, thanks for dropping by. It's going okay. It's Monday morning. I'm at work, so I'm on the work's Wi-Fi, and that's why we're stationary. I'm hoping to find a way to get pocket Wi-Fi so I can go back to doing the lives from the park, because I much prefer being in the park than being indoors. But this is where I shoot my videos for my normal content, and I'm just piggybacking the Wi-Fi here so I don't ruin my data, because I seriously emptied the data in my packet in like 2 weeks. So that will regenerate at the end of this cycle. So yeah, things like I don't know. My life hasn't changed at all since I've been since this has happened. Not at all. I've not had any situations where I've been like, I better not do that. I might want to rethink that. My work is in education, so and the kids aren't, at school, so that means that I'm, got a different work setup. But I haven't been coming to work at any different time. I haven't been leaving work earlier, coming to work later, or anything like that. I've been just doing my normal daily routine. We haven't stockpiled anything. Although my wife has been sort of, checking out online and stuff like that. There was this thing on Amazon, man. There's 100 yen stores here, which are dollar stores. Let me just read this. It doesn't feel much different to previous trips. There's just more hand sanitizer, and some things are closed. This is only from a tourist perspective, though. But I would imagine that numbers, like restaurants and things like that I would feel, I'd imagine, I wouldn't know, but I'd imagine that there's less people out there in restaurants and things like that. But like I say, for me, my daily life hasn't really changed much at all, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm just ambivalent or, but the thing is, I ride 2 of the busiest trains in the world to get to school and get home every day. Less people, and that's a good thing for sure. There's less people out and around in Tokyo, and it's. Oh, and by the way, did you see there? Did you go to or are you going to Tokyo Skytree? Starbucks, hello. The vibe is not a lot more serious here now. I'm not sure if you've heard, but there's people of 70 might have to stay in the house for 4 months. 4 months? So Starbucks is in Scotland, I think I'm right in saying Starbucks, and the vibe's gotten serious there. Although they haven't closed the schools yet, if I remember, or if I've read rightly online, what's going on in the UK. And but talking about like 70-year-olds being housebound, that's not a good idea. Sorry, healthcare people, people who know better than me. I would like to probably Wednesday or Thursday. We'll head to Asakusa. If you do go to Skytree while you're here, Cedar, there's a quick pass for people who are visiting from overseas, and you go straight into the elevator and you don't have to queue. So it's well worth doing that. I think you have to pay something like $5 more, but you don't have to queue for an hour. But then again, given the state of affairs right now, you probably don't have to queue at all. So, but yeah, so in Scotland and in the UK, they're talking about quarantining, self-quarantining anyone over the age of 70. All the universities are closed around Glasgow and the west of Scotland now, but schools aren't closed yet. Only a matter of time, though. But they're not so sure how effective closing the schools is. And the thing I've talked about here in Japan is that when they closed the schools, what that did was it put kids in contact with their grandparents a lot because their parents were still working. And then you had grandparents and kids going to the park, which exposed grandparents to it. And the elderly are one of the most at risk. An early stat that I saw, and this was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, but an early stat I saw was that the fatality rate for 70 years and older, was it 70 or 80? I think it was 80 years and older, was 20%, which is insanely high. That's 1 in every 5 people who catch it who are over the age of 80 pass away. Good morning, Mo Gaines. That's Trinidad and Tobago in the house. Anyone interested? We've got Scotland, Australia, Japan, Trinidad and Tobago, America via Los Angeles. So we're conquering the world together, this movement, some kind of movement. We should name this movement. What should we call this movement? Maybe margarine movement. No, that doesn't sound very good. A sauce movement. Oh, Mo, can you come up with an idea for a name that we call this movement of ours as we conquered the globe? Mo's a very intelligent man. He's bound to come up with something that rings true and that we can call this collection of people all getting together to solve the world's problems. So, and the world's problems here is the butter movement. What a brilliant idea. You guys, that's it. I would never have thought of it. The butter movement, man. Oh, I miss the butter movement. No, they were great days, man. Shoebar. I was in touch with Shoebar. I don't know if the 6 people watching know what the butter movement is, but it was a sneaker community thing, and it was a big channel that a guy called Shoebar ran. So good morning. Thanks for checking in. Is that Psycho Ducky? Psycho Ducky on. I want to say Thursday, we're doing a shoe at the channel called the Reverse Duck Camel. So there you go, Duck. You might want to check those guys out, the Reverse Duck Camels. It's a really cool shoe too. But yeah, butter movement. It was Shoe Butter ran the butter movement. I don't know how many people know about that, but Shoe Butter's my cousin. He's a good man, and I was in touch with him yesterday. And he said where he is in the world, it's pretty tense, and there's a lot of people just staying at home, not going out in the world and stuff like that. So it's but that's the same. Lots of different places in the chat. Again, was it yesterday or the day before? Maybe it was Saturday's chat. There was a guy from Utah and saying that the shelves are clear. They've sold out of fruit and vegetables. People are stockpiling milk and stuff like that. Just a little update from Trinidad and Tobago. We have 2 confirmed cases. The schools closed for 1 week. But yeah, stockpiling in Utah. But then in Alabama, which is a couple of states away, a guy in the chat was saying, it's not a big deal here. So so state by state, it's interesting. Country by country, it's interesting, the different reactions. So Trinidad and Tobago, 2 confirmed cases, but you guys are already shutting that thing down and closing the schools. So what they say here about the school closures is that what they're trying to do is slow it down. They're trying to slow the spread of infection down rather than actually like stop it or control it or reduce the number of people who are at risk from it. it's not like protecting the kids. Young people aren't so vulnerable to it. Most young people don't, unless they have pre-existing medical conditions. Most young people aren't vulnerable to it. But they're trying to slow it down, slow the spread of it down, so that it doesn't kind of get out there. And also, one of the big things about it is if they slow the spread down over a long time, rather than have it spike like this, is it puts less pressure on the health services. So if you've got a spike up, like way up high like this, then the medical services, hospitals, doctors, nurses, medicine, they're all struggling. So New South Wales, Sydney is on the verge of complete isolation. So are you, I assume you're there. You're not just like knowledgeable about the states of Australia. So Cedar, who should be in the chat, is also from Australia. So thanks for the 6 thumbs up, by the way, everybody, because that's quite a lot. And for this time of the morning. So I appreciate that. It's 8. What time is it? It's 8:35 in the morning. So Cedar's from Australia. I can't remember which part of Australia he's from, but he's actually here in Japan. So Queensland, he says there. And he's been visiting, and we've Cedar and I have been like mashing it up for the last few weeks because he's been planning to come out here and visit. So he's been really concerned. If you're into sneakers, you know anything about sneakers and Australia, there's a great hashtag on Instagram to follow, and it's called Jordan Heads AU, and the Z at the end, ZAU there. So it was 8:15 in the morning in Sydney. I think somebody just wrote up there. I've been to Australia twice. I lived in Australia for a year, and I chose the complete wrong place to live. Oh, somebody's coming in. So hello. One of my co-workers just joined us. I'm live at the moment in a chat. So, but no, you're fine. Just do you mind me doing this? Are you sure? I'm speaking to some people in Australia and Trinidad and Tobago and Los Angeles and the world. So they're doing really well. But somebody just sent me a message. I need to read that message. So let me have a check. Yes, I wish there was more info on what pre-existing conditions are high. Yeah, that's true, right? I think it's mostly to do with I don't know if asthma will be a problem, but asthma is respiratory, right? So I don't know if asthma is going to be a problem that's, you might be at risk from that because, if you have a pre-existing like arthritis in your right knee, you're probably not going to be at risk from it. But one of the members of my family actually has, say hello to your co-worker first. Mo Gaines, Kyohei, Mo Gaines in Trinidad and Tobago said hello. Mo? Yes. Oh. He's my friend in Trinidad and Tobago. He said, say hello to your co-worker. So, hello. He said hello back. So yeah, the pre-existing conditions thing is it's hard to know what it would be, but respiratory tends to be the stuff that people are worried about. And like I said, one of my family members has kidney issues, and he's worried about it. He thinks that if he caught it, then he really wouldn't have the ability to fight it off. So, konnichiwa from down under. A guy in Australia said konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. So I was saying, that I lived in Australia. I visited Australia once, and it was a mental holiday. I flew into Perth, which is on the west coast, the most remote city on the planet, and took the train from Perth to Melbourne. And if you're from Australia, you'll know this, but I'm going to give the people who aren't from Australia time to think about this. But how long do you think the train would take from Perth to Melbourne, right? So Australians will know, but you go across the Nullarbor, I think it's desert, the Nullarbor Desert. And for those of you thinking about it, it's the Ocean Pacific, what's it called? The India Pacific across the Nullarbor, and it takes 3 days. 3 days, and I was in coach. I wasn't even in like a cabin. I was in coach, and I did it on New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day because I'm stupid. But yeah, it was right across the from Perth to Melbourne. This was back in, I want to say it was the winter of 2000, 2001, or the summer in the case of Australia of 2000, 2001. And so I flew into Perth, spent a week there, spent 3 days on the train going to Melbourne, spent a week there, flew up to Sydney and spent a week there, and we flew through a bushfire, and you could smell the burning in the cabin of the airplane, which was extremely scary. Spent a week in Sydney, and then flew into Hong Kong, and on the flight into Hong Kong, I burst my eardrum, so I had to stay in Hong Kong for a while, and then flew back to Tokyo. So it was a great holiday, and I thought, that was brilliant. I'm going to go and live in Australia. So I chose the worst place in Australia to live. You have 30 seconds to work out where the worst place in Australia to live is. So And my favorite part of my stay was probably the beaches in Sydney. I went to a different beach every day. It was like Coogee, Manly, Bronte, Bondi. Went one each day, and it was just brilliant. Like city beaches were amazing. So, but living in the worst place in Australia for a year, it was a bad idea. I don't know why. Well, I do know why I did it. So Alice Springs, Kings Cross, Blacktown. These are no. I'll give you a hint though, because I visited Perth, I visited Melbourne, and I visited Sydney, and I thought, well, you know what I should do then is I should complete the set. And I lived for a year in Surfer's Paradise, and I arrived in schoolies. So it was absolutely awful. It's not a place to go and live, you know what I mean? It's a place to go and visit. And it was just, I don't know, it was a bad decision, man. Oh yeah, exactly, right, yeah. I arrived in schoolies, and that was my first impression of it was like a teenager taking a shit in the street. So it was like, yeah, hey, welcome. Glad to be in Australia. And somebody just dropped out the chat after I told that story, so. Yeah. Live the gold. Seriously, right? I mean, but the address was great. I stayed in Tivoli on Paradise Island, Surfer's Paradise, Gold Coast. It sounded great, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I'm a white man, if you know what I'm saying. So the sun and me in Australia didn't go down well. So, but the holiday was great. I had a great holiday there, and so I was planning to live there for a while because I thought that'd be a good idea. And I was back in 2002, 2003. I left Japan after the World Cup because my wife got me tickets to a bunch of World Cup games, including the final. I got tickets to the World Cup final, but we had an argument and split up. We weren't married at the time, and she took somebody else to the World Cup final, and then we got back together the next week. It's not my best decision, really, to be honest. So, yeah. But anyway. So I left Japan after 2002, after the World Cup, the football, and then came back a year later, and I've been here since. So I've been here for like 20 years. But yeah, so the coronavirus thing is, we'll see what happens to over the next couple of days, especially, and see if those numbers change. See if they enact that state of emergency that they were talking about. They've enacted the right to do it, but they haven't actually done it. So. But they are going to aim for 8,000 people tested per day, and that'll ramp the numbers up. And as the numbers go up, then they'll have the reason to enact that state of an emergency, and then we'll see where things go from there. So, but at the moment, the shelves are still full. My daily life really isn't disrupted at all. The only thing that people really are struggling to get their hands on is paper items like toilet paper and kitchen paper and stuff like that. So, but everything else is pretty much full. Cedar is here from Australia, so he's visiting Japan from Australia right now. And he'll be able to tell you as well. He's out there, visiting as a tourist. You go into a 7-Eleven, you go into a convenience store. The shelves are all full. Milk's still there, bread products are still there. The only things really you can't get your hands on are masks and toiletries, especially paper-based things, and then like anything with an alcohol base, like alcohol sprays, well, not booze, of course, but alcohol and things like that. So the shelves are still pretty much full here. Nobody's really panicking or that. People who are concerned about it and have worries about going outside, they just tend to stay at home. And that's one of the things they enacted very quickly here was the right to work from home and things like that. And people took that seriously. So food fine, noodles fine, yeah. Just toiletries have been a bit void, right? But hopefully your hotel doesn't run out. that would be a bit of an issue. Or are you staying in an Airbnb? That's what my dad did when he visited. He stayed in an Airbnb. So. But yeah, you don't want to run out of stuff like that. So booze would be a good sanitizer. Well, it'd be good in two ways. Booze would be good because of the alcohol in it. Would be a good sanitizer. But also, if you just drink it and then you don't care, that's also a good sanitizer. So there's lots of different ways of getting around this thing. But as soon as if in Scotland, if they start to run dry of the booze, Starbucks will be able to tell us. If they run dry of booze, then there'll be social issues. Then you'll find people complaining. So. But yeah, things are pretty cool here. Everybody's pretty chill. It's a beautiful day. It's going to be beautiful weather for the next week or so. Hopefully, when my monthly sort of packet kicks back in, Yeah, for sure, 50, right? And I get more data back on my phone. Hopefully I'll get back up to 7 gigs, because I burn through 7 gigs of data on my phone doing the lives from the park. But I would like to do a couple from the park again, just to get out there, and so you can see the daily life of people. That was one of the big things about doing these lives, was that you could see the people behind me and see that they were going out doing their morning jog or playing in the park or things like that. So yeah, Buckfast isn't selling out yet, says Starbucks. I like the yet on there, because it's coming, right? Is the first thing is Rab C. Nisbet sort of style. It's like, we're gonna stockpile for the apocalypse, and he goes out and gets some Bucky. But yeah, they were talking, like I say, in America, a guy was talking about people stockpiling ammunition, and you're like, really, that might not be the best thing to be doing right now. So, but people are dealing with it in different ways. The Psychodeck says they even cancelled the Highland Gathering Festival. I was going to work yesterday. So and that's the thing, is one of the things I talked about in a previous video about the sort of, like, it's not even a secondary, it's almost a tertiary impact of this. Like, the primary impact is, say, airports, right? Airplanes. Obviously, they're impacted by this financially, like, straight on, and everybody knows it. And you're like, wow, okay, that's a problem. Hotels, people aren't going to stay in hotels and things like that. The travel industry in general, of course, they're compromised by this. But then there's secondary people to that that are compromised to it. So just on TV, people are buying all the guns in the US. What is with people? Buy those guns. So, but that's the thing, is that then there's people like that who are, making out from this and making a profit from this. And the gun makers getting a spike in profits. The people who sell, like, alcohol hand sanitizers will be rubbing their hands together, I'm sure. But it's the people who you wouldn't think about, who I kind of think about. So you've got those people who are hit directly by it, and then people from their industries. So people who work part-time or work contract in hotels, for example, or those guys, or deliveries to hotels and things like that. America prepping for the purge. That's what this is. It's a cull. It's a cull. They're going to cull the weakest of us, and it's a plan. Somebody's got a plan. I'm not going to say who. Somebody's got a plan to make us all great. But it's the tertiary people, like, and I talked about in a previous video, is there was a story on the news here about flower shops, because the Japanese year runs from April to March. And it's the financial year from April to March, and it's the education year, like the academic year, from April to March, and it's the business year from April to March. So schools finish their year in April, in March. Universities graduate in March, that kind of stuff. And then you join your new company in April, and you go to work. And there's a massive spike for the flower industry across March and April because of those things, because of graduation ceremonies, because of people celebrating new jobs and things like that. Moving house, here's some flowers, to welcome you to your new home and things like that. So they've had a huge hit, but nobody would ever have thought to think about the flowers. Well, I say nobody, I didn't think about it. And I think people out there wouldn't think about the flower industry when they thought about how's this coronavirus going to affect people. And you have to think about that, though. You have to think about the people who are affected by it, and whether or not you can help out with people in your local community who are affected, and buy local. That's the thing that I think we should really think about right now, is buy local instead of going to big, huge supermarkets or shopping malls and stuff like that. Buy local right now, because it's the local people that will suffer, and it's the local people that will not have like the financial backing to ride this out. They won't be able to ride this out for more than a couple of weeks, whereas a big, huge department store or a chain of shops, they'll have multi-millions of dollars in the background, and they'll have planned for this kind of thing. They'll say, right, we can go 3 months, and that kind of thing. So buy local, to make sure that you're supporting the people who don't have that kind of infrastructure behind them. You should buy local anyway, because if you buy local, then the guy who works local uses that money to buy stuff in your it's cyclical, like, so if you buy a chocolate bar from your neighborhood shop that's 5 cents more expensive than at the big shopping mall, but that guy then uses that money to buy gas in the gas stand down the road from you, and then that gas is cheaper because they have more customers, and then you get cheaper gas out of it. So buy local in general anyway, but in this particular situation, buy local, because they're the guys who are going to get hit hardest. And it won't be in the news. The stock markets will be in the news. And I forgot to talk about the stock markets. I'm really worried about what I read in the news today about the Fed pumping more money into the quantitative easing and dropping the interest rates. And what I equated this to, so what they're going to do in America, and they're actually doing it in the UK and Japan and Europe simultaneously, is that they're all going to pump tons of money into the economy in various ways. It doesn't matter about how they do it; they're just going to do it. And they do it by like buying bonds and things like that. There's tons of ways they do it, but how they do it's not so important. The fact that they're pumping all this money in, reducing interest rates and stuff like that. But what it looks like to me, what it reminds me of is one of those movies like Troy or something from the Roman era where they had swords and shields and stuff like that. And it reminds me of a guy who's got a shield and then he throws that shield at his enemy hoping to knock him out. But if he doesn't knock him out, then he's buggered. Do you know what I mean? Like, so he's got this shield that he can protect himself with, and his enemy's coming towards him, and he's like, right, I will throw my shield at you and try and hit you in the head and knock you out. But if I fail, then I've got nothing left to protect myself with. And I feel like that's what they're doing in the financial markets, is they're going to leave themselves really exposed. Yeah, that Fed rate cut, they can't go lower. There's nothing lower. This is the limit. They can't go any, if they go any lower, the interest rate will turn positive. Stimulus packages rolling out minorities. And if they don't get, if this doesn't work, there's nowhere to go. You know what I mean? It's their last, they shouldn't have done it this fast. I don't think they should have done it this fast because the news is going to continue to be negative, and what will happen is you'll get a wee spike and then it'll just kick off again. So I'm really worried about these stimulus packages, and I don't think they're going to have they are going to have a short-term effect that they want, but then if numbers keep rising and people, you get the panic going again. Easy credit for car loans, home student loans, good. It is good to have that easy credit. I do know that, but I don't think people are going to dig into their pockets anyway if they're worried about where their next meal's coming from. They're not going to be like, oh, you know what, I could get a car for an extra $500 cheaper. They're actually worried about putting food on the table and things like that. So I think these stimulus packages could be really, really risky for that. So you've got to. It looks like a last resort, got a case in my estate getting real here. So no, it is getting real all over the place. And because they're not testing here, or they weren't testing, they're starting testing now. Because they weren't testing here, then we don't know how close cases got to us. But there was a close friend of mine, both his daughters had fevers and a cough, but they didn't test them. They took them to the hospital, but the hospital said, no, we don't need to test them. And it was like, really? And so a fever and a cough right now sounds like coronavirus, but they didn't test them. So I don't know how many people here actually have it compared to how many people they've tested for it. But those stimulus packages, I know they're good. I know what their purpose is. I know that they make it easier to buy. They make it easier for banks to loan money and stuff. It frees up banks to get money into the hands of consumers and stuff. It makes it easier for people to buy cars and pay off loans and all of those kind of things. But only if people actually want to do those things. I don't think people want to make long-term commitments right now because they don't know where things are going to go. I've heard people are getting turned away from testing in America despite the conditions. So I think they were doing that 700 billion, man, so much money. But then if you have $700 billion kicking around, why does a quarter of the population live below the poverty line? Why not pump 350 million into the economy and actually use the other 350 billion to get the schools back into shape and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and I mean, it might work. I might be wrong. It might work. I'm no economist. I don't have a degree in accounts or anything like that. But if this stimulus package thing, it'll have a short-term effect. You'll see the markets rise today, I'm sure, and maybe stabilize tomorrow. But if the numbers keep, going a bit crazy, and then trade isn't happening, the movement of goods around the world isn't happening. So smoke black. That's right, because in Australia they've had the bushfires. So. The rates are crazy though. It's insane. The rates in Japan have been really low for years. My house loan, the interest rate on my house loan, which I've had for 12 years now, has been 0.9% for the entire 12 years that I've had it. So rates in Japan have always been really, really low. Feel like a level playing field. So, but guys, I'm gonna have to chip off. We've been at this for half an hour, and usually my battery starts to run dead around about half an hour's time, and I've got to actually, go to work and things like that. So I'm gonna have to chip off. I really appreciate you guys being here and checking it out and hitting that thumbs up button. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And all the comments as well. You take care too, Psycho Ducky. Hopefully we'll see you again. All the comments and stuff, and actually making this a conversation. I really appreciate it. You too, Mo. Have a blessed day. I appreciate you dropping in, man. I always, I was actually talking to Shoebar about you yesterday, Mo, and telling them how things were in Trinidad. Thanks, Cedar. Thanks for dropping in. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up sometime in this week. Robster760, thank you too. You have a good one as well. For now, though, I'm going to sign off, guys. Appreciate you guys checking in, and I'll be back, in the evening with that sneaker content. But again, tomorrow morning we'll go live again. So I'll speak to you guys then. Take care, stay safe, be healthy, and be